Happy Valentine's Day, my dear friends. Good morning for friends in the US. Good evening to our friends in India and Singapore. We have a lot of very interesting things we want to discuss today, but today can be more informal in the sense the slides I have today, we can go over them next Monday or even the last Monday. So there's really no rush to finish any particular curriculum for today. And I have a very good friend of mine, professor in Emory University, Dr. Gautam Kumar, with whom we do research on Takotsubo, mental stress and other physical stress related cardiomyopathies. He invited me to Emory. So it was a very prestigious occasion for me to visit Emory today morning via Zoom and present our research work at Emory Grand Rounds. And I told them, it is not things that I learned in cardiology textbooks. It's not bench research that I did here. And I said, I owe all of this that I'm presenting as cardiology to my patients who trusted me in the last 3 years and engaged in heartful living and Siddha self-inquiry. So once again, I thank all our friends over the last so many years for being with us. We'll give it to Dr. Gautam because he's not only a cardiologist, but he's also doing his own Siddha self-inquiry without knowing it till today. So today is officially involved with our program. Please introduce yourself a little more. Tell us a little more background of where you come from and tell us how your journey has helped you understand your physical and your mental well-being through what you're doing, Gautam. The stage is yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a practicing interventional cardiologist in the Atlanta VA, and we have been here for close to 10 years now, 10, 11 years. It has been a long journey in self-realization. I have probably like a lot of my patients who are veterans, I have had the privilege of spending 3 years in the military as well. I was in the army in Singapore, which is where I am from originally. And obviously I was a lot lighter and a lot fitter at that time. That has changed with the years. But really my journey towards self-consciousness really started once the pandemic really began. About 2 to 2.5 years ago, and at that point it was out of necessity that you couldn't go to a restaurant, or I didn't really want to bring in a lunch and eat it because I wasn't sure, we weren't sure how this bug was spread, and we wasn't sure what was safe and what was not safe at that point. So I was never a big breakfast person in my whole life. I can't ever remember eating big breakfast. And so I basically have arrived upon a setup where I would have a cup of coffee in the morning, no lunch. And then when I get home at 4 or 5 or whatever time it is, then I would have a cup of tea and then some biscuits, and then subsequently some fruits, and then dinner following that. And then again, the cycle would repeat the next day. When I wake up, there is again no breakfast, and I would continue with that. Now, there are certain days I have broken with this and enjoyed myself, gone out for lunch and all that. This is not ironclad in discipline or anything of that sort, but I would say it is fairly reasonable that I would do this at least minimum 4 days a week. Sometimes every day, sometimes 5-6 days of the week, but minimum at least 4 days a week. Now I think the name given to this would be intermittent fasting, but I was probably doing this before it was given that name. But once I talked to Dr. Chakalingam, I realized, these are a lot of the principles that I have arrived upon by self realization that have actually been stated in Siddha medicine many years ago, many thousands of years ago, that he has formalized as part of his program as well, with mindful living and healthful living. And so I thought that I should share this because, I guess I should mention that in terms of consequence to health, it has been a phenomenal consequence to health. I haven't had tremendous weight loss. I would say probably I lost about 10 pounds. I was around 182. Now I'm around 172 to 174. I went down initially as low as 164, but I've probably gained back a little bit. And in terms of fitness, I feel a lot fitter. I probably can run 7 to 8 miles easily without a problem. It's only my plantar fasciitis that bothers me more when I start trying to run longer distances. But yeah, enough about me. But that's I have found that this has made a significant change to my life, and I have arrived upon this unconsciously, so to speak.
Thanks so much for bringing your actual experience to us. How is your sleep? Are you needing more hours or less hours? Are you feeling fresh through the day to focus on your work?
I have never been a big sleep person. So I have never been big on sleep personally. So yeah, it really has had no real great impact on my sleep. And partly because of my job, I have a lot of waking up in the middle of the night and nocturnal activities.
Which is extremely challenging.
Yeah.
See, I am a general cardiologist. My work is once in a week or twice a week, I'm on call where we address things on the phone a lot of times because we have postgraduates, cardiology fellows. Whereas Dr. Gautam is an interventionist, which means if somebody is having a heart attack, he has to immediately go at 2 in the morning, sometimes spend 4 hours doing procedure. At 5:30, 6 in the morning, when he's done saving a life, he has to just start the morning at 7 o'clock. So there are many, many interventional cardiologists who give up doing what they are so highly trained and skilled at much sooner than they would like to, because it just is so fatiguing over years and over decades. I honestly believe this type of self-inquiry will allow you to help society even longer. That's what I personally think. And here in Colombia, we have cardiology fellows who have even more stress than attendings because they are still in training. They have so many more hours to work and things to learn. Even they are finding this fasting is helping them cope with their day-to-day challenges so well. And we have interventionists who start Monday morning acute ST elevation MI cases with fasting. So Monday may be the best day. I've been doing some days of the week, but Monday may be the first day of the week to start on an empty stomach so that we can cope with the beginning of the week's challenges so much better with a clear mind. Thanks so much for joining us, Gautam. People, if you have any quick thoughts, suggestions, we want to hear from people who haven't been speaking with us much the last several weeks. We want to really thank Willie, who came to my clinic after he spoke last Monday. And he gave like a 10-minute speech and he said, no, I thought I spoke only for a minute, but he gave such a beautiful summary of how his health has improved over the last year. And Willie's story is what made me famous in Atlanta today. So thanks again, Willie. So I shared your story with cardiologists in Atlanta.
I have a question. I thought that you were talking about not eating for, say, 14 hours after dinner, but not fasting all day until the following dinner. Is that right?
Yes.
It sounds like
everybody
Dr. Kumar is.
Yes, he's doing 24 every day, which is, I think, too much. So that's what I'm going to explore a little deeper with him later after we are done as a group. But there are people, Siddhars, who typically have only one meal a day, and they're supposed to have lived hundreds of years. I don't think it is possible in this era when we are engaged with family, with our work, and trying to run 7 miles in a day that he can just sustain on just one meal. But everybody is discovering ourselves in this. And as you see him, he's not trying to lose any weight. He's a very healthy person. And if he still wants to eat lesser, it's his own choice. But we still have to make sure we take care of our responsibilities and our commitments. So that's a balance that we find. And for me, the simplest way is I'm hungry enough and I understand that I'm eating just what is minimally needed for me to do everything I would like to do with my day. That's all is my way of doing self-inquiry and Siddha fasting. So for most people, it will end up being about 14, 15 hours every day of the week. And once a week, or maybe sometimes 2 times a week, we can go all the way to 24 hours. And this type of 24-hour fasting, we don't recommend if people have any eating disorders, cirrhosis, pregnancy, or insulin requiring diabetes. But for others, majority of the people, it is something that is possible. Even if you are in the 60s, 70s, in 80s also, we have so many people saying that this type of calorie restriction is giving them a new, fresh lease of good health. Did I answer your question, Marjorie?
Yes, thank you.
Super. So we had requested people to get some grapes. We're going to take 1 minute to have the first grape. Shall we try that now before we get to the slide set? Or if some people need more time, we can start with gratitude while some people go get it. So for half a minute, we'll first relax. Try to be just grateful for where we are in life, being alive in this COVID pandemic, where many of our friends and families have not been able to make it in the last 2 years of the pandemic. So those of us who are here, we want to be grateful just to be around. So sit back in your chair, just relax, take a few relaxed breaths, be aware of your breathing. And then if you need to go pick up some grapes or something else, in case you don't have grapes at home, you're most welcome to go pick it up now. Some snack like nuts or anything at all that you can lay your hands on, but preferably grapes. You'll know why when we start it. So half a minute of just relaxing, and then we'll start the grape gratitude experience. Time for grapes. So whatever you have, you take it in your hand. But if it's grapes, thinking many people have grapes in your hands, I'll just continue. So the exercise is not to finish eating the grape. It is to ensure that you take at least 1 minute to experience this grape. So the simplest clue I'll give is to take a good look at it, because we don't see food long enough usually. Feel the texture. And then once you put it in your mouth, you will still have maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds to just play around from the side, on this side and below your tongue. The grape has so many layers on its skin that if you don't bite into it, it's going to take a while for that experience to change. And then you take the bite, and that first bite after 20 seconds will be amazing if you play it in your mouth for a little bit. People who have nuts may not experience it like that. So we'll go ahead and try this. So when I say let's have a grape, we mean one particular grape. We want to play around for at least half a minute in our mouth, and then slowly relish it for another 30 seconds at least. Enjoy the grape.
Don't play with your nose.
That grape was great. I was already very hungry. I'm enjoying first 20 seconds. And then once I bit into it, it felt so nice. Anyone wants to share your grape experience? If you liked it. If you didn't like it also, we are welcome to hearing your thoughts.
I had a hazelnut experience, and I noticed that it's sort of like brown rice before you bite into it, is the way it smells and tastes in your mouth. And then you bite into it and it's quite sweet comparatively to what it was just like having it there. So that was very pleasant.
I should say I ate 3 grapes in that length of time. First one was good. I had another one, and by the time it was over, I'd already eaten 3. So maybe I didn't, my gratitude, or I didn't appreciate it enough. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I ended up eating 3 of them.
So much of our life without paying enough attention. Now, 1 or 3 is not that big a difference. We are now taking some more time to relish some very simple things in life. So I'm so glad we are having this grape eating experience while we discuss Uvagai, which is the main focus of today's discussion. Some more thoughts on how this grape experience was? Anybody else?
We didn't have any grapes because we ate them all yesterday, but we have some grape-sized blueberries.
Super. It works
So,
just as well.
Just as good, maybe even better.
Excellent, excellent. So what we've realized today is when we take more time, the same food really tastes better. And having 1 minute per grape, if we go on like that all day long, we have to be eating. We may not have time to do whatever work we want to do. Our students cannot study. So we have many, many busy things that our life requires us to do. So eating takes secondary attention for us. We cannot pay all that attention that food needs. But if we are hungry enough, we will naturally, intuitively be grateful for food. We won't take it for granted. So just by committing yourself, just like Dr. Gautam, an interventional cardiologist who understands the heart, but he is doing it because he feels intuitively in the pandemic, he may not exercise as much. Why should I eat that much? Like that, he has thought 2 years ago. Similarly, 2018, I connected with Timo. He is like 20 years younger than me. And he's a tour guide in Slovenia. We saw about him, I think, some weeks ago. And he's so fit. And he runs across, climbs mountains within a day. And he's having only 1 or 2 meals. Then I thought, why did I live 45 years, 3 meals every day? Maybe I need lesser food. So in that discovery, I'm still journeying. And it's so fun and grateful that it makes me every day. So this grape was just a sample into how we can learn this directly. It doesn't have to be from any theoretical constructs, and it's just very direct, simple experience, just taking a little longer to celebrate the food that is in front of us. So take 20 minutes, try to prepare your own food at home, and find at least 1 meal where you can have with family, friends, so that you connect with people while you celebrate food, and pay as much attention to the eating. Minimum 20 minutes when you sit down for a real meal. Doctor, I don't have enough time, then don't have the food. You can have the food much later when you have the time, because eating is such an important aspect of our self-understanding that it needs some time every day to celebrate. Okay, so any other thoughts? I have some slides I can share. Any other quick discussion points before I go to the slides?
I have a question about breakfast.
Yes.
I've had doctors tell me that it's very important to eat a hearty breakfast. And I've followed that dictum, but in fact, some doctors said you should have protein for breakfast.
What you're saying is true.
Cheese and meat, so you don't have a mid-morning letdown.
And we've done that research here with our own collaborators, and we've been publishing last 15 years on this important concepts. Main thing that you already highlighted. Of the 3 meals, the most important may be breakfast. Definitely it's not dinner. And then having protein in the morning stabilizes our insulin and other hormones in the body in such a way that there are lesser spikes and lesser craving for more food. So people who end up skipping breakfast may end up craving through the day and then binge eating a lot in the evening, that sort of challenges. But when we learn this as a meditative Siddha fasting, out of gratitude, out of smiling, out of our confidence, then really people find they have so much more flexibility. It does not have to be breakfast. But for starting, I would suggest breakfast as the main meal. And even yesterday, I met someone who said, breakfast I have, second meal is around 2 o'clock. After that, I'm not needing much food. And this is someone who has a heart problem, and he's able to cope with it so much better because he's cut down after 2 o'clock everything that he eats. Maybe one small fruit he may have at night time if he needs it, but otherwise morning 9 and 2 is what he's doing. But many people also tell me that if I skip dinner, I'm not anxious and not able to sleep. So I let you figure out what works for you, and whatever works this week, next week try something slightly different. Keep exploring. Life, there is such a huge experience that we want to every day find new, more fun ways to get home. That's the BMW ad when I came in 97 to the US. Take the long route home. Like that, the inner journey also find new fun ways to explore your own consciousness. But by and large, breakfast with protein may be a good way to start. Excellent. Thanks for bringing that. Any other quick questions? Okay, so we'll go into some slides. Are you able to see it full screen or is it a part screen? Are you able to see my slides?
We are seeing all your slides. Now we are seeing your first slide and your next slide at the same time. There you go, full screen.
Perfect, perfect. So we'll go ahead and get started with how to lose yourself in flow, bliss, meaning in life. And we'll finish off today's discussion by touching upon what Siddha consciousness tells us about Uvagai. So today we are in February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, my dear friends. My disclosures, and we've discussed this earlier. There are so many sports, some fitness, some resistance, and some which mix both. But if we take up sports, we are talking about 80-year-old heart patients. Yes, we talk about everybody in this group. If we take up sports, then we don't have to exercise. It'll happen on its own. It'll be so fun. But until we find the fun exercise, let us make sure we get at least 30 minutes of brisk walking, biking, or walking in a swimming pool if we have that much arthritis, or rowing stationary. So many things we can do. And then arm bicycle ergometer or 5-pound weights. My request is for you to all mute your systems. That way we can, let me see if I can mute all. Yes, I think I've muted everybody and I'm hoping you can still hear me though. So that is the thing. Find an exercise for the time being that will be something that engages, where you're not able to casually do it. You want to work hard and feel that sweat. But then if you find a sport, then that's 10 times or if not 100 times better than just exercising. So this is a recent study that looks at biological aging. Cardiovascular risk is the biggest thing that takes most lives across the world. So if we can reverse cardiac aging through minimizing alcohol, cigarettes, making sure we exercise for 150 minutes every week, minimize sodium intake, ensure more foods which have fruits and vegetables, and minimizing sugar added substances and meat content, then we have a much better chance of slowing unnecessary unhealthy aging that happens prematurely, unfortunately. These medicines, I don't think we need to even get there once we learn how we can do this mindfully. So this is the same concept. So centenarians and super centenarians, we met some of them in the blue zones in Costa Rica, Loma Linda, Okinawa in Japan, and how they are living extra 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years compared to average life expectancy in the developed world. So without the modern uh, procedures and stents and pills, they are able to outlive us and stay healthy and productive. So that is where we want to be moving. And this is another measures of how to measure, quantify this biological aging. So many concepts, but the ones in green we will understand. If we are, women have lesser risk of accelerated aging, and if we have blessing of parents and grandparents living into their 90s or 100 years of age, then good chance we will also inherit those genes. But for our own perspective, what we can do is minimize alcohol, ensure we take plenty of nuts and seeds and legumes, and plenty of vegetables and fruits, and ensure adequate sleeping and 30 minutes on most days of the week if we exercise. These are the green things that really minimize our vascular aging. So chronologically, we are based on our date of birth, and in our passport, it tells us how old we are. But this biological age is completely dependent on these lifestyle and our stress levels, and moving forward through life at a comfortable and intuitive pace. So this patient, our friend, we already met with him, how despite being on the treadmill, his dyspnea drops off dramatically. And this we discussed as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's flow phenomenon, optimal engagement with a task, free of self-consciousness and genuinely fun. This is not something you do for the doctor. You do it because it just feels so fulfilling. And this concept with the tennis, we can look at it as, if I were to play with somebody I don't know, I mean, who doesn't know tennis, then I'll be bored. If I were to play tennis with somebody who's posing too much of a challenge, say for instance, Novak Djokovic or Roger Federer, and I'm playing on a tennis court, I'll feel too awkward and anxious. So that's not a good thing. It won't allow me to enter into flow. So I have to find someone my level of skill, and there's a chance out of 10 times once I may enter into a deep state of meditation as I'm playing the game. So this is the fun part of flow, and that's what we just published recently. And if you look at cave dwellers, they were relaxed most of the time, felt stressed only if there was a tiger chasing them, and their threats were real. And cortisol would peak, but then it will come down automatically when the stress is cleared up. So this is how our ancestors lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Only in the last few decades, this modern life has become ultra modern to the point that we are on the edge all the time, on the computer, and then our brain thinks the cell phone notification itself is similar to the threat of a predator. So these are the associations that were formed in our brain millions of years. So they're not going to change just because we discovered a smartphone within the last 2 decades. At least for many of us in this group, we know of a world before these smartphones and social media became so prevalent. But the next generations, they are coming to introduce to the world with all these devices. So they don't know of any other world. So this stress hormones are a part and parcel of every day at a chronic level. And if that is persisting, that itself can cause such a high risk for chronic metabolic problems, including diabetes. So we don't need to overeat. Just overstressing can put us at risk for hyperglycemia and diabetes risk over months and years. So these are the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These are the ones that are our friends. When we are dealing with the self-doubt, lack of social relationships, feeling depressed and anxious, if we can trigger these through setting and making our goals, through connecting genuinely with people in our family and in our neighborhood, through gratitude and through regular exercise, we can ensure we have adequate natural production of these biological factors that improve our motivation, trust, feeling of meaning in life, and a real high and runner's high, you can call it, or a second wind, or it is the real phenomenon of flow itself. And we address this through Ikigai, volunteering, intermittent fasting or Siddha fasting, and through really engaging in sports and physical exercise. This I just found yesterday. I thought cardiac resilience is the most important thing. Resilience is the ability to cope with unexpected stress. They are saying anti-fragility may be even more powerful force because it is the ability to grow from that stress. So resilience will bring us back to our baseline, whereas anti-fragility may actually make us perform and become stronger just because we are stressed. So all these are similar concepts. Basically, the important thing is to recognize there are going to be stresses in life, just like COVID. There may be other things that bother us immediately, specifically, or it can be general things like natural disasters. But whatever stress we are having to face, our ability to overcome that is intrinsic, and we can connect with that and build confidence so that whatever life throws at us, we will be better off coping with it. Now, coming to meaning and happiness, having a sense of belonging, purpose, and transcendence is so important. And finally, writing our own history. What this means is, if something happened 10 years ago that we regret even today, we can go back 10 years in our mind and rewrite it in a positive frame of thinking. That ability the subconscious has, and it keeps building through our life. So what I'm requesting you to do is slowly address every regret in your entire life. And within the next few weeks, when we meet again, tell me, oh, I have no regrets at all. I might have had an accident where I totaled a car 10 years ago, but now I'm rewriting that history and saying, luckily, nobody died in that accident. I had to pay a $2,000 co-pay to my insurance because I didn't have a good insurance at that time. But still, I learned the lesson that I have to drive slower if the weather is not conducive. I've been safer and not had an accident in the last 10 years. So that one accident saved so much of downstream potential problems. So I can rewrite things like that in my own mind and completely move on with life. So we know that on average, people have a life expectancy of 78. Suddenly, in some locations in the world, they live extra 12 years. And we know that is despite their challenges. And these are the blue zones that we already touched upon. And the main thing that makes them live that much longer is probably this challenge. In 95, we had 3 friends. In 2010, 1.5. In 2022, it's probably closer to 1.2. I don't know how many friends we have in the US. But in Okinawa, Japan, they still have the same 6 friends from the time they started their life. So this is close to 5-6 times more. And these are people who really care for you. They know what you like to do, what you're doing at 6 p.m. And if you have an issue, they will be there to give whatever support you need to be able to get you back on your feet. So this is resilience that is in your system and in your community. We have to remember that as we grow older, aging also accelerates. Compared to when we are teenagers, by the time we are 65, our aging accelerates 125-fold. So what Dr. Gautam Kumar told us today about looking at the pandemic and saying, I'm going to eat lesser food because the pandemic is cutting down my ability to exercise. As a cardiologist, he's learned this. He's much younger than that. But what I'm trying to tell you is his acceleration won't be there. He will age appropriately because he's cutting down on the food intake. So this is what we know from the blue zones. Rural settings with limited healthcare resources, they are still having large family units. Elders continue to play a key role in their family. They don't retire. They have Ikigai. We're going to talk about that. They don't exercise in these blue zones to live 100 years because their lifestyle itself is demanding. They are either farming or fishing or hunting, doing something that involves their body on a daily basis just to survive. So they would look at us weirdly if we go tell them how many steps are you getting. They don't have the need for Fitbits. And their diet is naturally healthy without any processed components. So what do we mean by processed foods? Anything that comes in a package. So if we can get real food, which is still available in our grocery stores, only 1 in 10 things are real, unprocessed, and intuitively healthy, fruits and vegetables and nuts. So why 9 out of 10 things are unhealthy? It's not because the grocery store wants us to be unhealthy, because they are only catering to the demand of the community. So if we intrinsically change, then the store will only sell things that are healthy. So it's the change that has to happen from us. So in the blue zones, they've summarized what makes them so healthy. It may be because they are naturally moving, they are looking out, they have an excellent outlook. Downshifting means every night, several hours, they are relaxed. They don't have smartphones, and they eat wisely, a little bit of wine, plenty of plant-based foods, and they don't fill their stomach. 80% or maximum, that's all they would eat. And they are able to genuinely connect with their family and their community and have a sense of belonging. So this lack of purpose in life can increase all-cause mortality, 5%. It's just a psychological construct, like, oh, I don't feel there's any meaning in my living. How much do we think it can affect our risk for any cause of death? This concept was evaluated in Japan, where they have this word ikigai, which translates as the reason for waking up in the morning. That's all it means. But they asked the question to 40,000 Japanese, and about 5% did not have that sense of ikigai. Majority had some sense, whereas a third weren't too sure about it. If you are unsure, you're still okay. But if you say, oh, I don't have ikigai, then mortality goes up dramatically. This is all-cause mortality. This may be more powerful than any medicine or balloon or stent that we can do for your heart. If you have that sense of meaning in life, it is so, so important. So I want to introduce you to my granddad. For him, he felt in 1940 that our Tamil traditions were sort of eroding just because the times are changing. People who are Tamil for 5,000 years felt inferior to other communities. Slavery had been around for 2,000 years. He had already been in jail several times because he is talking about freeing people from their own silliness. Now, in 2019, Tamil has become a world classical language. And our heritage, we are genuinely proud in the last 60 years for being Tamil. And his main message is everybody is equal at birth. There is nobody who is born into privilege. Everybody should have the right to live life on their own and experience all the beauty of it. And he has been the general secretary of a major political party for 40 years. This is my granddad, my mom's dad, Professor Anbaragan. And his request is find your calling early. He means in teenage, and dedicate yourself completely to it. For him, the calling was dignity for Tamils and equality for all. So that kept him going for 98 years. He died just around the time of 2020. And this is us with him. And this is just a year or so before he died. He's been such an inspiration for us. But his simple message is, as a teenager, find a deep calling, and then the rest of life becomes so natural and intuitive. And he was addressing this ikigai question. He does not know this word because this is very specific to Japanese culture. But we are all humans, and we all understand the value of being good at what we are doing and enjoying what we are doing. And if the world needs our service and if we get paid for it, these are the 4 cornerstones of directly experiencing Uvagai. Doctors have all of it because we've trained for several decades to being a doctor. We enjoy working. The world needs doctors and we get paid good amount of salary for being a doctor. Then you would think doctors have extreme ikigai, but unfortunately, in the US itself, we have 3 to 4 times more depression and suicide risk compared to the general society. So doctors need to remember this. Having it is one thing, remembering and experiencing it on a daily basis is how we experience the deeper freedom from the challenges of modern living. So connect with your calling. Success is likely, but much more importantly, you will find the needed intuition and intensity that makes you truly alive in the day. This is a patient of mine who I am learning way more than I'm teaching her. And after a year, she has lost, I would say, uh, a lot of weight. And not only that, the important thing is at this point in life, around October, November of 2021, about 5 months ago, she ended up losing her 40-year-old son. She came home one day and found him hanging. He had killed himself. And at 40, he had not had any mental health issues, no medical problems, not on any medicines. He was working at a pet store in town, and she comes home and finds him dead. She tries to revive him, calls 911 for no use. So her life after 5 months is still going on. And she comes to my clinic last week and tells me, Anand, I learned heartful living. I lost a lot of weight, but not only fasting, but I also learned the altruism and compassion, exercising with awareness, flow. She's an author and she continues to write. And she tells me in a scale of 1 to 10, as far as her attitude and her Uvagai, she is at 10 out of 10, despite having such a huge loss of her own son within the last few months. So I want to thank her for bringing her story to us. And we know of patients with complex coronary artery disease who are not able to get the needed stenting or bypass surgery, who are experiencing this level of optimism. We know we talked with a person who has compression fracture on top of every organ failing, and her telling us that her cup is not half full or half empty, but it's totally full and overflowing. We know of our friend who had a fast for 50 days, just water, despite being on insulin for 10 years. He had given up all food and all insulin and all medicines. And he did great. At 48th day, while he was in the hospital being weak, his level of optimism and inner energy was still so high. And now we just met our 75-year-old who's going through the loss of her 40-year-old son to a suicide. So all of them are telling us, this is our 50-day fasting gentleman who's telling us this is a mental construct, optimism, pessimism. We can go well deeper, much deeper than the logical mind and reasoning, and experience life at a much more profound level. On day 48 of his fast, he is so happy. That's the real message that he wants us to experience. He doesn't want all of us to stop eating for 50 days. What he wants us to recognize is the value of this Uvagai. So that's what we're going to spend another quick minute on. So flow, we all recognized, is a rare as a natural phenomenon, but when we learn how to experience tennis or running or writing music or playing piano, then we can experience flow. But a lot of times it involves the body and it lasts a few minutes, and it definitely has a healing potential. Whereas bliss or samadhi or enlightenment, these are high words or extreme experiences that we typically attribute to Buddhist monks in Tibet and Hindu saints and Himalayan caves and cold weather, and religious leaders in different parts of the world. In their own religious experience, they may experience such a high level of freedom from all life's challenges. So this is extremely rare, you could say, based on that. There is a lot of religious training or spiritual training needed. And then this typically does not require the body. So Buddha himself is an example of sitting under the Bodhi tree for several years and finding bliss and enlightenment. Duration of the actual experience is usually only some minutes to hours. And the healing power is definitely there if we can enter into such a high level of consciousness. Uvagai, I feel, is different. And I've always felt that, but now we have these 4 patients who are telling me, not only these 4, we have several more, but these are the ones we are writing a manuscript in mindfulness, using Uvagai as a principle. And we want to say that this is possible as a natural experience. You don't need much level of training or skills. And using the body is ideal, but not required. And this can be a permanent experience. This need not be lasting a few minutes. And the healing power of this is so definite because patients are telling they don't need balloons and stents once they start tasting Uvagai. So we know self-knowledge, which is Siddha consciousness, is non-transferable, begins at zero. And this is the reason for our happiness and fulfillment compared to any scientific or theoretical knowledge that our logical mind acquires and leads to any material success. This we can translate and pass on to future generations. This we cannot even pass it on to ourselves tomorrow morning. So today we might have thoroughly enjoyed, been in bliss, been in flow with that one grape. But tomorrow to enjoy that grape, it still needs us to connect deeper and go into this natural self-inquiry. So this is the source of all our learning and habits, scientific knowledge, whereas self-inquiry gives us the resilience to embrace whatever life throws at us. So this is a very simple diagram I put together yesterday, which I think covers all these concepts. Flow is the path towards moving away from our logical limitations. Once we have moved so far away from it, we have a small chance to enter into bliss or samadhi or enlightenment and stay there for maybe a few minutes, maybe hours. But this is typically described only for people who are really experienced and trained. Flow has been described for people who write music or play tennis, or it can be through even day-to-day chores. But we need to open our consciousness towards flow. And bliss can be something we achieve or we may not. But this Uvagai is way down here. It is after we come back from our mountain climbing. We are now back in the valley. We are day-to-day living. And this is where we can experience Uvagai at a very, very profound level. And this may be so much more meaningful, even more than bliss or flow. Why I say that is the journey upward, flow requires effort. It is involving the body, and we know dose, right? Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphin, all of this will get us into the second wind, runner's high, or flow, even during cardiac rehab, to understand the value of exercise. But that is only the beginning. While we are on top of the world, this is in US Virgin Islands in December on Christmas Day. I was there hiking by myself. My car is parked right down there. So there's not a path to get up here. I just had to walk up a stream that was dry. It took me an hour to get up to 1,000 feet in this. There's no trail, so it was a pretty hard hike. But I made it just at a time of sunrise and took this picture. So this is my experience of bliss, you could say. But this takes so much effort. And luckily I was fit enough at that point from playing tennis and biking and other things that I was able to get there. But what we want to remind everybody is this is not what heartful living requires out of you. So many hours of meditation or that many practices or even this grape experience. Today, you took 1 minute to have that grape with me. You don't have to spend 1 minute starting today. If you really like this, you can try it for a few more days. And if you make a habit out of it and for you, it makes sense, you're most welcome. But this Uvagai we talk about is every day. When we are on ground level, when we are doing routine stuff, just hanging around, enjoying life. That is what Uvagai is about. So what is Uvagai? Uvagai, the word itself translates as extreme happiness. And that itself implies there is no reason for it. So it goes beyond logic, beyond our reasoning mind. So can we be content, grateful, and happy on a daily basis? So this is what last week you answered a 10-point survey. Many people who are here scored extremely high. So we have to congratulate people on being there, experiencing Uvagai. And for me, it is a pleasure and privilege to be connected with so many such high energy and goodwill people and connecting and experiencing life with you, through you. So this question of heartful living, which is at the core of subconsciousness, we want people to connect with your heart on Valentine's Day. H is for being humble, whatever we accomplish, being empathetic towards people around us and nature, and connecting with your goals and dreams and aspirations on a daily basis, and reciprocating, giving others that benefit of doubt. Just those 4 things will build enough trust in the world, in your family, in your colleagues, and most importantly, trust in yourself that you're adding value to your life. So this heart of consciousness can look at this logical question, whether life is okay or life is not that okay. And you keep asking that question through self-inquiry until you know for sure that without any bit of doubt that your life is totally full and overflowing. So don't stop anytime until you feel that genuinely is your experience of life. Because so many of our friends have shown us that despite their health issues, despite their heart being weak, they're able to experience just this. And this is what we are now reporting. And because we had this discussion in Valentine's Day of 2022, I believe 2 years from today, so many of our friends here will call me and tell me, Anand, this is who I am. And then we will use your story and our combined collective experience to inspire the rest of the world. Thanks so much. I'm seeing a couple of comments. Tell us how love helps the heart. Gautam has answered, love is the basis of everything. Beautiful. So there's nothing more I need to say there. Heartful living is all about love. But we don't use that word love because I'm a cardiologist and my patient at 70 may say, my wife died 4 months ago, doc. I'm still trying to cope with that. So I don't bring that word in all of heartful living. But everything we do in these 8 hours is about connecting with life through our heart, which is love itself. Beauty, beauty. Let's open it up for any suggestions. Another 5 minutes, quick question answers. And after that, I'm here for as long as we need once we turn off the recording. Quick 1 minute exchanges for the next couple of minutes. People who haven't spoken so far. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Priya. Thanks for
How's it
joining us.
going? No worries. I had a general question, maybe not related to what you talked about today, but in general. These days, there are lots of diets like keto and paleo and stuff like that. So, what is your take on that?
So as a cardiologist, there are 3 things we have to remember. Since we have our interventionist, I hope you'll agree. One is plant-based anti-inflammatory whole foods. The other word for it is vegan. So if we move more and more towards plant-based, will be better. The other thing is calorie restriction. That has separate benefit. It's not a diet. It's trying to minimize food intake to just as much as we need. The third thing is this fasting. And if we can do once a week up to 24 hours, and then most days 14, 15 hours if we can go without food. If we can combine all these 3 things, then we'll probably end up living 200 years.
What about carbs? What's your take on carbs?
The word carbohydrates is sort of misunderstood a lot. French fries, fruit juices and drinks, soda, they all have carbohydrates. They don't have fat, they don't have protein, but they're all not that healthy because they have sugar added. Even sugar itself is a carbohydrate, but that sugar adding is one of the biggest challenges in the last few decades that society is facing. So that also is carbs. So that's why we don't want to mix it in the same sentence with vegetables, yellow vegetables, dark vegetables, green vegetables, fruits, nuts, so much of healthy complex carbohydrates, even brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat, they are all much, much healthier than refined carbohydrates. So that's the big difference we have to recognize. And every day when we are at the grocery store, we have to see what is the percentage of added sugars. You'll be surprised. Most things in the store now have 20, 30, 40% added sugar. So that is what is the unhealthy carb. And healthy carbs, your grandma will recognize when she sees it. It will be looking like an apple. It may look like an orange. It may look like a banana, because that is what it is. But if they try to package it in a bottle and say this is fruit mix of fruit-based chips or whatever, be extremely careful. Make sense? So
Yeah.
real carbohydrates is real food, whole food, plant-based. Diet is healthy. Excellent.
Thank you.
So Gautam, since you started off today's discussions, are you able to experience that inner happiness because you are putting less food in your body? That is what Siddhar Anbu Ganapati tells us. If we eat lesser, we'll be happier. Are you feeling it, Gautam? Then we'll give it to Siddhar Anbu Ganapati to tell us some more.
Professor, what am I supposed to do with the pound of chocolate-covered strawberries I received for Valentine's Day?
You should enjoy it.
Thank you.
And
I
you
have,
should,
I
when you're
have
enjoying
permission.
it, oh, you have 110% permission. But my request is be really, really hungry when you taste it.
Thank you.
Or share it. Share it with
Oh,
others.
yes. But tell your friends
I've
also,
already-
you will share it only if they are really hungry. If they are not hungry and they're just eating it because you're giving it, then it is emotional eating. Because Joanne is giving it, I have to eat it. If they are eating it because it's their lunchtime or snack time at 5 p.m., then it is habitual eating. But if it is eaten out of true hunger, this chocolate strawberries is going to be fine. But for my heart patients who have excess weight and they're trying to cope with the challenge of catching their breath, for them, I would recommend to limit it quite a bit. But for you, Joanne, happy Valentine's. And I can send you my address, I'd like you to send me a few of those chocolate strawberries.
Joanne, you should eat it mindfully. Eat each one mindfully and slowly like the grape.
Just don't eat them all in one day.
Well, they won't keep forever. I'll give some to my neighbor.
My nurse gave me this lint. This is something I love. She said, Anand, you're talking about heartful living and plant-based eating. How can you have this? I said, I'm really hungry. I deserve it. I'm going to enjoy it. So today, Valentine's Day, I'm going to celebrate it. Plus with this grapes also. Gautam, quick thoughts, and then we'll give it to Siddhar Anbu Ganapati. Anybody who has questions, this is the time, because both are doctors, they'll take a long time.
I have a question about motivation driven by reshaping your body. You know, some women want to make their waist smaller so they have a more hourglass, and men want to build up their chests and arms so they have a more muscular. Is that a good reason to eat a certain way and to exercise, or is that not good?
I get in trouble with the psychologists when I talk about fasting, because some of them feel, oh, there is so much eating disorders, body shaming going on in society. If you ask people to eat lesser, they're only going to binge eat more, become more anorexic. The challenge is those eating disorders are underlying problems that actually end up causing excess obesity. So when I'm dealing with somebody who's trying to become healthier, whatever tools we can embrace is fine. One of my own good colleagues here, I've known 15 years as a physician in this hospital. I didn't recognize him because he didn't come to Heartful Living, but he lost 130 pounds in 2021. So when I saw him, I didn't recognize him. And I asked him how you managed it. He said, I am sticking to 1400 calories every day. He is now about 55, 60 years of age. So he's not trying to look macho, but he's trying to get healthy. So we may have so many different things that may be the motivation. I have a 17-year-old girl I've known all her life. She's a high school tennis player and doing #1 for her school. But she has lost about 30, 35 pounds in the last 6 months. So for a competitive athlete, the goals are very different. For her, it's performance. For some people, it may be just the looks. For boys, it may be building more muscle. Teenage boys, my son went to college and he's every day thinking about fitness training and building muscle. Till college, he was only playing tennis, but now he wants to look macho. So everybody goes through different phases in life. But the core principles, as long as we recognize that we are eating the right things and we are working with the right intention, we should use the body to work with us. Body is our friend. If we try to restrict too much or push it too hard, then it may not do too well. But otherwise, encouraging it and taking it along with us, only success will come through in whatever goals we may have.
I'm sorry I couldn't answer you just now because my colleague was on the phone. So I will answer you now. Yes, my happiness level has increased significantly. And it has had a significant difference. The other thing is about the mind and the body. They are both connected. And at the end of the day, your body is a manifestation of what you see as yourself. And the two are linked. And if you feel that, okay, I should be muscular, then that should be a goal for yourself. If you feel that I should be thin as a rake, that can be a goal for yourself as well, within the limits of what is reasonable. But I think the important point that Dr. Chokalingam is also getting at is that we are not trying to say that we should be under eating or we should be starving. We are trying to say we should be eating the bare minimum that we need for our activities. Am I missing that point, or am I hitting
That
the
is
point?
the Siddha philosophy.
That is-
I did
that
not
is
know that until last month, but that is what I've been doing for 3 years. I
Yeah.
wish I had met Siddha Ranbuganapati 20 years ago when I was still in India in medical school, because I would have been so much more effective in the last 20 years. But today is not too late. Now Gautam is here, Siddha Ranbuganapati is here. Together we will bring the needed science to the world so that people will see the value of what we are doing. So nice, Gautam. Congratulations and my wishes for your continued celebration of life. Any other quick thoughts? Anybody? Siddha Ranbuganapati?
Yes, sir. Vanakkam. That is, you have been talking about conscious fasting. It's not starvation. That has to be rightly understood first. And this concept has been very nicely written by Thiruvalluvar. He talks about the calories. That is the great thing. He has not used the word calorie, but he has rightly put it in his poem. He alavindri theriyan peridu unnin noi alavindri padum. Thi alavindri theriyan. Here, the word thi refers to the calories. If one does not know the amount of calories he needs for the amount of work he does and eats more than his requirement, the disease will also onset on him so much as he eats more. So Thiruvalluvar is very much aware that the calories, the excess calories of food is a root cause of several ailments. That is very important. The second thing, you have been talking about a beautiful Tamil word, Uvagai. I do not know how many people who are not Tamils can understand the word Uvagai. Uvagai is not just happiness. Uvagai is not just joy. Uvagai is not mere enjoyment. Uvagai is not just a pleasure. Uvagai is an experience of inner bliss that we call enlightenment. The moment you come to know your inner self is full of ananta. That ananta you have to experience, and that is possible only through fasting and love, unconditional love for everybody. The day you develop in your mind a feeling of love, not only for your wife, children, grandfather, grandmother, parents, you share your love with everybody, every human being, every living thing, regardless of whether human or animal. You share your love with everybody, your health is assured. That is what Dr. Gautam Kumar rightly said, that it's the love. Love is everything. What our Tirumandram says, love is Shiva. Anbum Sivamum Irandu Enbar Arivilar. Anbe Sivamavadu Arigalar. The God and love are the same. Anbe Sivamavadu Arindapin. Anbe Sivamai Amardarundari. He remains in a state of bliss, a state of ananta, where there is a heartfulness. That heartfulness, mindfulness, and the fullest satisfaction of this life you get only when you experience that Uvagai. Uvagai is something that is built in everybody. You know, this Tamil word Uvagai, it is given to another word called Uvattal. From this word Uvattal, we have drawn an obscene word where the union of man and woman, which gives an unconditional joy, that is referred by the Tamil word Uvattal. That has become a slang in a different way. So that is bringing out the inbuilt joy. That is exploring the inner self. That comes only when you forget yourself completely. The moment you forget yourself in the climax, then the inner bliss awakens and comes up. That is why the word Uvagai, I love this word Uvagai very much. God has given you the right word. Uvagai is exploring the inner self and getting oneself merged with the inner joy. That is a Siddha's way of life. I hope I could speak some aspect of what you spoke. Thank you so much.
மிக்க நன்றி, வணக்கம். Thanks so much, ஐயா.
வணக்கம் ஐயா.
So you give us that depth and context for, because I'm at the end of the day still evidence-based cardiologist trying to talk about things where I'm not an expert or I've not read enough. When you join us and you bring this type of depth, it makes our sessions so much more whole and complete. Thank you. What other discussion points, my friends?
What?
I'd like to ask about other people in our lives, ones who really are negative, if I can use that awful word, but who basically love to live in the past and bring up past transgressions, or just, I don't know, just being in the room with them, almost you can feel this negative energy from them. I've heard some people use the phrase energy vampires. What do you do? How do you treat these people when you would like to treat them with love, but you don't get that in return? What do you do?
So this is a real challenge. Every day we are facing this. And the only way we can avoid this challenge if we sit in our own room and don't open it to anybody else. But then that's not life. We need to interact with so many people, even within our own family and close friends and very dear ones. We are, if we look carefully, we will see a lot of challenges, concerns, negativity. The thing is, these things come from our logical mind and they are there for a reason. We are having to survive through so many natural and man-made challenges over the last thousands and thousands of years. So that negativity might have given us some survival advantage and protected us and kept us going till now. But now for the last 50 years, if you look back, there's not been major wars. The world is sort of in probably the most peaceful times ever. And we are moving into more artificial intelligence-based systems. Once AI becomes the primary thing, already since we discovered this nuclear bombs, I don't think any major power wants to go to war with anybody else. So finding a better weapon made us less war prone. So what I'm trying to say is we are moving towards higher consciousness, and that is the best thing that is happening to us. And we've been doing this positive movement for the last several 100,000 years. But in the process, we are sitting here in our time and space wondering how to navigate our specific minutes or hours. A simple thing I would suggest is if you're sitting in a movie, it is best to have the seat next to you empty. Unless you know for sure the person sitting beside you is more enthusiastic or at least as enthusiastic as you and is going to make your experience better. Take it for the movie, but take it for life also. Share it with people who are just as energetic and optimistic and positive. When we interact with negative people, we are drawn towards more negativity and self-doubt also. And it's not like we can be ever optimistic about everything. Everything is a balance, but finding that inner energy, we can definitely show that life is better to our negative friends and family. But it's a much longer process, and it is going to happen because you are here asking this question. It means tomorrow you're going to be even more of a positive energy in that space. But there is only so much we can bring every day, every minute. So be wary, and if you don't have to be in a negative environment, just slowly move away from it and find something else to occupy your attention with. And then you will end up at the end of few weeks, few months, few years, collecting more people who are in your wavelength. That is all we need to do, because we have a finite time. We need to ensure that we celebrate it the way we perceive life should be celebrated.
Hi, Dr. Anand.
Hi, Bharti.
Hi. My husband has been sitting in with me for these sessions, and he has a question for you.
Hello, sir.
Hello. I'm 72 years old nearly. I've been meditating since 2007, and I'm doing Vipassana. Most of the time, I say every day, about 3 hours I spend just doing Vipassana and other meditation anyway. But my body weight has not been increase or decrease. It's been since 40 years ago. Whatever I have, I still have. Even I can wear my clothes which I bought 40 years ago. And physically I feel a lot more fit, but sometimes I feel I'm totally drained down by energy. What's likely to be the cause?
Weight is not the answer for everybody. Are you having a normal BMI? What's your BMI? Do you know? Okay. So weight is not the issue for you. And finding more fun things to do. Trying a little bit of what we do here, which is this smiling and gratitude and connecting with being hungry a little bit more may help. But then if your weight is already on the thin side at 72, you may have to actually ensure that you get adequate amount of nourishment, because at the end of 1 or 2 years of learning this Siddha fasting, we don't want you to become weaker. You see what I'm saying? So we'll talk about it some more. But for me to go into very specifics about how to address this, I think we will need to have a one-on-one rather than trying to do it for the group.
Thank you. I just heard the lady talking about the negative energy.
Yes.
And last night I watched a video on one of this discourse by Ben Prabhu about the Buddhas, Lord Buddhas. And she talks about Buddha was carrying a lot of negative energy. And the enlightenment process, they showed the video of his brain progress and how the brain progress and the balancing the negative and positive energy. They showed near to his enlightenment that he had a lot of negative energy that exceeded his and overflow into the other part of the brain to balance, to offset the balance of the positive energy. And this is where he achieved the enlightenment.
Very nice.
Doctor, one word. Mr. Shah, he said that he is 72 years old.
Yes.
Please tell you are 72 years young.
Please say you're 72 years young, not 72 years old.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
The smile that you pose, the way your face appears, you doesn't seem to be 72 years old. You are only 16 years with 56 years of experience.
But that's why my wife always pushing me harder and harder. Hey, do this. Go and get go in the basement and get the things done. So that's what I have to do.
Thank God she is the guiding force for your youthfulness.
That's
you
right.
should thank her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
So next Monday morning, we don't have a very clear agenda. So I will bring some slides, but I'd rather that people come and tell us what you're doing that is so fun in this American Heart Month. That is connecting with yourself, using your mind, using your body, and enjoying life some more, and doing a little more of this Siddha mindfulness. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer. I'll just turn off the recording now.